Hello, everyone. I'm Cheldin Barlatt Rumer, and this is it. Welcome back to This Is It TV. I have a good friend I'd like to introduce to all of you. I'd like for him to share his first and last name and what he is up to. How are you, friend?
Hey, thanks for having me. Dan Ritterman here.
Oh my God, Dan, my jack of all trades and the master of all of them. I'm so excited that you were here to join me. It has been some time since we got together, right, my darling?
It has been far too long. Thanks for having me. I'm more thrilled to be here.
Oh my goodness. So Dan was taking care of me. Him and his counterpart Michael were taking care of us as we were perusing real estate spaces, trying to find the next beautiful studio for This Is It TV. But as I begin to talk to him, I realize that he has so many layers, Dan. You have so many layers to who you are, right? You studied law, correct?
Yeah, I'm a licensed attorney. Yes.
You're a licensed attorney. You're an ex-entrepreneur.
Yes.
And then now you're in commercial real estate.
Yeah, well, now I help other companies with their strategizing. So it all fits together.
It does. It does all fit together. He likes to keep hidden secrets, though, folks. Like he'll drop bombs on you about his past life. Oh, and I studied law and I'm a licensed attorney. Okay, fair. I had a business that was bought out by a larger conglomerate. Okay, fair. Like he has more knowledge than you could ever imagine. I want to talk to you about the business that you started that got bought out, but at the same time, the industry that you were in that is super, super hot now based on the time that we are living through. What is the industry that you come from in your entrepreneurial space?
Sure. So in 2008, I founded a company with a friend of mine from high school. It was called Mainline Delivery, and it was one of the early on food delivery services. So for historical reference, the iPhone came out in 2007. So this was sort of like a time where people weren't really using the internet as an everyday service like we do today, right? So a friend of mine and I moved home from college, and we started this business that we had seen in our colleges, similar things. It was called Mainline Delivery. The initial idea was actually Wawa delivery. We really wanted to deliver from Wawa, which they were not interested in at the time. So we pivoted and we started working with restaurants. Wawa is now delivering with all these delivery services, so it all comes full circle. But my friend and I sort of carved out a niche on the main line where we were the first real major players out there. So we were able to grow our business in that area and kind of corner the market. And then we operated this food delivery service for 8 years until Caviar came, who was owned by Square at the time, and bought us out when they wanted to move to the suburbs of Philadelphia.
Wow. So you and your buddy, I mean, it's a true tech story. It's my buddy from college. I mean, Dan, you are that guy. It's like my buddy from college and I have this idea.
Well, it's a weird industry. Here's what I'll say about the food delivery industry is it bills itself as a technology industry, and it is, right? You have to have a piece of technology that customers interact with. But the truth is about the food delivery service is it's a very real terrestrial service that happens in the real world. So transaction happens online, but the food is made by a restaurant. There is a delivery person involved, and there's a customer who's receiving a physical good in a timely manner after they finish it. So while a lot of these companies really want to build themselves as technology companies, and it's true, they have a technology aspect to it, what they're really doing is operating a business that's very much a service in the real world and has all the problems that come along with that.
Interesting. And I truly love that, because if you think about it, being a social media platform, right? An Instagram, a Facebook, a TikTok, there's really no hardcore transaction unless you're doing partnerships, but let's talk about the actual platform. But there's so much more, and I really haven't really thought of it. I did categorize all of these apps with these food delivery apps in that tech category, but it's really a service-driven scenario because there's so many moving parts. I mean, talk to me about the development even of your mainline delivery in that space, because you have to get the delivery personnel, you have to have the relationships with the restaurants. Am I right?
Absolutely. So we were fully bootstrapped. We never raised any capital, which is not the way these companies do it these days, where they raise capital and try to get as big as they possibly can as quickly as they possibly can, right? So we took the opposite approach, and we were in an apartment, myself and my friend. One order came through. We would fight over who had to take it. One of us would leave and take it, and one of us would stay in the apartment and field phone calls for customer service. But when you think about what happens with food, your food's late. There's a phone call involved. So there's a whole customer service operation that has to go on. There are deliveries that go wrong and have to be delivered again. There are all these things that have to take place once the delivery is ordered. And as much as these services want you to believe that you click a button and an algorithm takes over, that's not the way it works. there are people who are overseeing this, the dispatching, the customer service, the restaurant relationship. There are people in the restaurant who are working. So there are a lot of humans involved in this process, no matter how automated the delivery companies want to make it seem. So for us, we had to build those systems as we needed them because we were, like I said, we were bootstrapped. So we were doing this until we had to hire one driver. We did it all ourselves. Then we hired one driver, and then we hired another driver. And by the time it was over, we had about 200 in the system, but it went one at a time. So we grew it incrementally as we could handle the growth.
Wow. And I think that a lot of us think about the front end piece of it, right? You think about the consumer transaction on that iPhone, on that Android. What does that look like? And ensuring that that transaction is seamless. But you're telling me that there's a whole other business inside of the business to make sure that you even get your food.
Exactly. So, and that's actually one of the problems that these companies are having right now, where this is one of those weird businesses that, in my opinion, actually probably gets harder to make money as you get larger. So on a very small scale business, which is what we were doing, it was very easy to be profitable on a per order basis because our operation was very small. The same person was doing dispatching, the same person was doing customer service, the same person was doing a lot of these functions. As you grow, you have to grow out these very large sort of parts of your business that get very bloated, and they end up costing a lot of money, a lot of office space, a lot of people, a lot of engineers. We outsourced all of our engineering. We hired a third-party company to do all that work instead of bringing an entire engineering team in-house. Right. So I think as you get bigger, it gets harder to make money, and you're seeing that right now with Uber Eats and DoorDash and Postmates, and none of these companies are profitable, and they're all fighting with each other for the same customers, the same restaurants, and the same drivers, which is a big deal that people don't think about, is the driver pool is being pulled in every direction. So while these companies are trying to cut costs to consumers, they're actually increasing the amount of money that they have to pay to the drivers. So as long as there's multiple companies involved in this industry, it's going to be very difficult for them to get profitable. So I think it's interesting to see what will happen, especially now where food deliveries become this weird essential service where it's like almost like we can't let these companies fail because we need them operating, but they're not profitable. So it'll be interesting to see how they shake out.
I think that that's interesting too. Also, again, you know, the funnel is so big. So again, you're talking technology, and this is massive. You're talking technology and the build out and the functionality of that. You're talking about relationship building, right? In that center space where you, as the creator of this, need to get on board these restaurants to even participate, right? There's nothing to deliver if you don't have the relationships with the restaurants. And then even more, which you touched on hugely, we'll get back to the restaurants in a moment, but the driver now becomes, you know, your make or break at the end of the day, because all of that work was done. The relationship was built with the restaurant, the technology worked, and then Jacob has to make it to the house with the pizza. Now, you know, so there has to be a sense of taking care of this new essential worker in what that looks like. And so that can only be very expensive after a while.
It's very expensive, and the drivers themselves have no loyalty to any particular company, and they don't have to pick. So it's like if you're driving for Uber and Lyft, well, you just turn both apps on and you accept whichever ride pays you more. Right. So it's the same thing with these drivers who are Uber Eats and DoorDash, where they just run every app and they pick whichever one will pay them the most for what order happens to come in. So the companies are fighting with each other to increase those payments. And I think we hear a lot about two-sided marketplaces a lot. In the business world these days. And this is actually a three-sided marketplace. Like what you're saying is we're trying to keep restaurant costs down while keeping customer costs down while increasing the payments to the drivers. And those all have to come together and equal profit for the company. And so far they haven't figured out how to do that.
Right. I mean, it just sounds like a massive undertaking. And I know that there was a number of different articles that have just recently gone out about the expense, the service expense that we are all consuming or taking, you know, that are taking the burden on as it relates to your $19 pizza. You're now paying $35 for that pizza or whatever it is, to make all of those numbers make sense.
And the amazing thing is that's not even enough. Right? We are all the consumers are saying these fees are getting out of control. Yeah. And my response to that is, one, I agree. And two, they're not high enough to make these companies profitable. So even with what you're paying, these companies are still losing money. So I don't know what the answer is except for consolidation. I mean, look, the way that you run a business is you find out what it costs to provide your service, and then you charge people more than that. right? That's a business. And these companies are not able to do that because if they actually passed through the true cost of their service to the customers, they would have no customers. So I don't know what the answer is, except for consolidation, but you don't want only one company providing a service. And I wrote an article on LinkedIn last week about this, about how you can see how this plays out by looking at ride sharing, where you have Uber and Lyft, right? There's only two companies that do it. And they're both not profitable because even with two companies providing the same service in the same market, they will beat each other up to the point where the prices are so low that it's not profitable to operate. So I don't even, there was an article that Uber is about to buy Grubhub, which will leave DoorDash and Uber Eats as the two biggest players, with Postmates Postmates will probably get acquired at some point, who knows. But even when you have those two major companies, you're going to be stuck in this Uber Lyft situation where if I'm a client, if I'm a consumer, which I am now that I don't own one of these companies anymore, I will order from whichever one happens to be cheapest that day. Who's giving me the free delivery today? Who's giving me the 20% off? That's the company that I'm going to order from today. And there's nothing that you can do as one of those companies to make me pay more than I would pay for their competitor because the services are too indistinguishable.
They're and they're getting them from the same place. So the supplier is the same. So they're not, there isn't a sense of exclusivity to Outback Steakhouse or, I mean, it's just open-ended, you know, to be able to figure it out because the restaurants, again, want that service. So they want to make sure that they don't, you know, they may or may not care as it relates to, as long as their consumer gets the food. And then there's all of these different transactions within one transaction. I truly, you know, have not really dissected the funnel until right now, just taking a look at, okay, one, I send it in the app, I'm praying I get my food warm, but there's so many different transactions and relationships that have to happen before I even receive my pizza. Let's talk about the relationship with the restaurants. As a startup at that time, you know, were you just going in blind, you know, to that Italian restaurant, to that pizza place, to that Mexican restaurant to say, you know, we have this service. I'm sure there was a learning curve there. Why, and the trust factor there, you know, talk to me about that.
Sure. So I was 21 years old and I walked into Boston Style Pizza in Marion Station and I said, this is what we're planning on doing. Would you be interested in signing up? And he said, that sounds interesting. Why don't you leave me your information? And I said, I need to get business cards. So yeah, correct. I went back to my apartment and I said, Rich, my partner, we should order business cards. So we, you know, that we were literally, the point of telling that story is we literally started from zero. I'm a political science major. My partner's a chemical engineer. Between the two of us, we had taken a total of 0 business courses. We didn't know what we were doing, but we had an idea. We had some common sense. And what we really needed was a couple of restaurants to take a flyer on us. So we found 4 or 5 restaurants that were known in the area. I don't think any of them exist anymore. And we got them to kind of agree to give, we were 2 local guys and they kind of gave us a shot. And we signed up 5 restaurants and we opened the website and the website crashed immediately and we closed it again. And 4 weeks later we fixed it, or the company we hired to fix it fixed it. And we opened it up again a month later with 5 restaurants and sat there and waited for orders to come in. Here, the biggest lesson for me from starting mainline delivery was everybody kept asking me, how are you going to tell people about this? And my answer was, what are you talking about? It's such a good idea. How can people help but find out about this? And that was wrong. People do not just find out about good ideas. That is not the way it works. No. If you are going to rely on word of mouth, you better be prepared to sit around for a while and wait, right? Marketing is no joke. It is very expensive. I still have no idea how to do it, so don't ask me. And for us, it really was, we were walking into restaurants saying, we're going to do all this marketing for you. But in reality, what we really needed, these restaurants were to hang giant mainline delivery signs in their windows because we had no way to market for them, right? We had no budget. SEO, I had no idea how to do Google Ads. I mean, I had no idea about any of this stuff. So really, like, it was about getting a couple restaurants who were high profile enough to agree that they would put our information in their restaurants. And then there was a time in the cycle where it flipped, where I was providing more. I had this huge customer base that I used to walk into a restaurant and I would say, you're not on my platform. I'm going to do 200 deliveries tonight with or without you. If you would like a piece of this pie, here's how you can slice off a piece for yourself, right? But that didn't happen for years. I mean, for the first 3 or 4 years of selling this product, it was not, I'm not begging is extreme, but we were going in there
right,
trying to get as much out of the restaurant as we were providing. Now that didn't last forever, and it became easier and easier to sell. And then we started getting inbounds because restaurant owners know each other, and they would start coming to us. And that then we started seeing the shift, and that's when I feel like we hit a critical mass of like, oh, we can actually do this.
wow, wow.
And that was probably about halfway through law
right?
school.
But that was but that was in it, and that was in the mix of it. And I don't think entrepreneurs, especially developers or people who have a concept, even think about the journey of it, right? The idea is not enough. And even executing on that idea is not enough. It's really about how you work that idea over time, paired with being able to share that idea, whether it be through traditional marketing or otherwise, that makes the difference. This conversation was super insightful, especially in a time where all of us are really utilizing these services and feeling a certain type of way about them, right? Whether they're too expensive or not, if you dissect the amount of effort and time and layers that are involved, you begin to see why those fees are in place, as well as, why they're, what it's all about. And I think that this was so insightful. So insightful.
I do want to add, I think
Yeah.
ideas are cheap. And the idea for mainline delivery was not earth shattering.
Right.
And I had a lot of people come up to me and they would say, oh, I had this idea years ago. And my response would be like, okay, what's your website called? Right. And they didn't my reason for saying that is that I didn't have the complete picture.
Yeah.
Because all these companies came years after me and have lapped me literally millions of times over at this point. Right. So DoorDash came way after us. Uber Eats came way after us.
Man.
They had the same basic idea.
Right.
Their vision was much larger than mine. And I give them all the credit in the world for that. I don't hold it against them. More power to them. They did what we should have done. Right. And every entrepreneur, I think, has that, where someone has your idea, does it better. Someone has your idea, does it worse. You have to be comfortable with being on that spectrum somewhere.
Oh my goodness. I absolutely loved this conversation, and I want to make sure that folks know how to get in touch with you. I mean, it's so insightful. I know that you're putting content out on LinkedIn, you're writing pieces and writing editorial, and I want to make sure that people know where to find it. If people want to learn more from you, my friend, like I do, where would they find you online?
Sure. So I'm currently doing commercial real estate advising, which we didn't even get into, but we'll get there eventually. So I work at a company called Tactix. It's TACTIX. My email address is dritterman, DRITTERMAN @tactix.com. And I'm always here to chat about food delivery, real estate, law, all kinds of stuff. I'm doing LinkedIn videos now where I'm just putting out information about coronavirus so people can hear about what's happening in the commercial real estate market. Just trying to be a resource of information. So hopefully people find that helpful. So find me on LinkedIn also.
Oh my gosh, I love it. Well, you're going to come back and we're going to talk about commercial real estate and the effects on it. I know that it's a crazy time, not only for one industry, but many. And I would love to get your insights on all things.
That sounds great. Hopefully I'll have my haircut by then too.
It's okay. It's a judgment-free zone, Dan. It's a judgment-free zone. Guys, I'm telling you, I only introduce you to the most amazing people. You need to follow, fan, and like my friend Dan. In the meantime, have a wonderful day from all of us here at This Is It TV. I'm Cheldin Barlatt Rumer, and we will see you soon. Take care.